Today, I'll show you how to add autumn colour to a woodland scene using Nik Colour Effects Pro. When I shot this misty image recently, the colour of the bracken was perfect, but look at the leaves of the silver birch tree. They look green and not very autumnal. But before I show you how to fix this, I first want to correct the image to remove a slight colour cast. If I don't, it might affect the adjustments I make later on. I've always found the Pro Contrast filter a great tool in Nik Colour Effects Pro for correcting minor colour problems like this, and all I need to do is use the colour cast slider. As I move it over to the right, you can see the tints removed from the mist. This also makes the mist appear cooler and a little more atmospheric. But what I don't want is for the colour correction to affect the foreground bracken or the leaves on the trees. I want those to keep their warmth because it adds to the autumnal effect. To prevent them from being affected by the filter, I'll add a negative control point to remove the filter's effect from those areas. When I click the negative control point icon, I can then click the bracken in the foreground to add a point there. After that, I'll add a negative control point to select the leaves on the trees. If I turn on the mask view, you can see in white what's selected by the control points. Later I may need to come back to fine-tune the colour correction, but for now let's move on and deal with turning the leaves on the tree yellow. The way that I'm going to do this is by applying the Indian Summer filter. When I add this, you can see that the green in the image turns orange. We can control this colour adjustment in two ways. The first is using the method drop down to pick a colour. As the leaves of the silver birch tree tend to turn yellow in autumn rather than orange, I'll change this to method 3. The other way to control the colour is using the Enhance Foliage slider, which controls the strength of the effect. With this filter, I want it to affect the leaves of the tree rather than the bracken in the foreground. That's because the bracken turns more of a red colour in autumn rather than yellow. To limit the filter's effect to the tree, I'll add a control point to select the leaves. Now the filter's affecting only the leaves and the rest of the image is untouched. As I'm using Nik Colour Effects Pro 5 for this edit, I can also fine-tune the control point selection using the colour selectivity controls. When I move the luminosity slider left, the control point becomes less sensitive to changes in brightness, meaning it selects more. At the same time, I can move the chrominance slider right to increase the sensitivity to colour. This allows me to precisely target the colour of the leaves on the trees and avoid the filter from affecting other areas. Having done that, I can duplicate the control point and use it to select other areas of the image. Let's now add a second Indian Summer filter to adjust the bracken. This time I'm using method 2 to apply more of a red colour. As before, I'm using control points to select areas of the bracken in the foreground because I don't want this to affect the rest of the image. After adding the first control point, I can adjust its colour selectivity controls. I'll reduce the luminance to create a wider tonal selection, then I'll increase the chrominance adjustment to target the colours more accurately. I'm doing this to prevent the filter from affecting the green bracken. I want to retain an element of contrast between the green and the orange bracken, whilst making the orange bracken stronger. The image is now looking much better and has more of an autumnal feel. Next, I want to add more warmth to the tree, helping to bring it forward in the image. I could do this by adding a third Indian Summer filter, but instead I'll use the Brilliance and Warmth filter because it has a very useful feature. After adding the filter, I'll increase the colour temperature by moving the Warmth slider right. Notice how this enhances the colour of the ferns and the leaves on the trees. Now for the other great feature of this filter, which is the perceptual saturation. When I move this to the right, you can see that it enhances the colours in the selected areas, but the blue in the rest of the image is also enhanced. Do be careful though when using this slider, as it's easy to make the adjustment too strong. The next adjustment I want to make is to enhance the mist in the background around the main tree. I'll do this using the classic soft focus filter, although I could also use the fog filter if I wanted to exaggerate the mist. In the method drop down at the top, I'll choose method 2. This adds a soft focus to the image, but without affecting the brightness much. The next step is to remove the soft focus from the foreground bracken, which I'll do by adding a negative control point. I'll turn on the control point mask so that I can see the area selected whilst I refine it. Now I can use the colour selectivity controls to reduce the luminance and chrominance. Notice that reducing these allows me to select more of the foreground, removing the filter from a larger area. Now I can duplicate the control point to remove the filter from other areas of the foliage. After that, I'll use another duplicate control point to remove the filter from the tree. By duplicating a control point that I've already adjusted, I also duplicate the colour selectivity settings. That way I don't need to set them each time I add a new control point. Finally, I can increase the strength of the effect until I like the look. If any area becomes too bright, I can use the highlight slider to protect them. Let's compare the effect to the starting image by clicking the preview icon. If you want to see another example of using the Nick collection for autumnal colours, watch this video next. It has some very helpful ideas that you can try. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy watching more of my videos.